My first surfboard was like, everyone wanted to be Kelly Slater and have this, thin, small blade to get out there. And so I did a lot of swimming for a long time instead of surfing.
Welcome everyone, you're listening to Nova Kooks. We are four East Coast surfers that don't take ourselves too seriously when it comes to surfing or other things. This podcast's mission statement is to not only take you on our surf journey from beginning to now and beyond, but to also explore personal growth, adventure, and the world around us, which includes pop culture and other topics. In this podcast, you're going to learn about surfing in the East Coast of Canada, and hear some funny surfing stories from our inexperience along the way. We are also keen to not limit ourselves to only cover surfing, because no one person is only one thing, and this podcast will also not only be one thing. I think it's fair to say that we are all most excited to just see where this podcast can go and grow. Surfing for us four is really the major commonality that the four of us have. On today's episode, as we get our sea legs, we will explain who we are a bit and share our beginner stories with some tips for other newbie surfers or those that are new to East Coast surfing. To begin, I am Jared Gates, and I will be hosting this podcast. I am an educator, musician, husband, and father of a little surfer girl. I love to run, surf, listen to music, watch movies, and try to say yes to any experience that I can fit into my day. I'm from a little village named Newbie here in Nova Scotia. Growing up, I had a particular infatuation for skateboarding that slowly evolved into this current love for surfing. My surfing actually began as a teenager in the mid-90s on vacations to Florida as a kid. Fast forward to my university days, realizing that people were surfing here in Nova Scotia. I heard of this place that was apparently really accessible for beginner surfers called Lawrencetown. I would rent gear a couple of times throughout my undergrad here in Nova Scotia. Fast forward again to returning home from doing an education degree in Montreal, and missing the ocean kind of beckoned me back, and I began my teaching career. I really wanted to try surfing again, but was a little too nervous and somehow talked myself out of it. Which brings us to this group, and about 6 years ago, where my buddy here, Charles, started getting into surfing. And one day he told me that he bought a board, and literally the next day I ran out and bought all the gear, and we began our rookie journey of learning how to surf and discovering how much fun it is. Having a friend to go out with and start the journey together made me feel a lot more comfortable. Now, I get out surfing whenever I can, which with a family is difficult. I am by far not that great at surfing. Even after owning my own gear for about 6 years now, I would say that I've been a beginner for that entire time. But I absolutely love it, and what it has done for my mental health and the physical benefits that I've received from surfing have really been unimaginable. Throughout this podcast, I'm going to introduce the rest of these guys that are sitting with me. But before we get into that, we should sort of talk about how we sort of began as a group, Nova Kooks, sort of explain what Nova Kooks, like the name, means. Because I was telling my wife, Nova Kooks, and she was really nervous about the word kook. She's like, that sounds like a derogatory term, and I think that we should get that right out of the way right now to start this off.
What does this mean? It's so beautiful.
So, Dave.
Yes.
Would you like to explain to our audience what the word kook means?
Okay. Well, I would say, to link to your story, I have the word kook in most of my passwords for my online email, etc., etc. And I've thought about it often, when are the police going to show up, saying, because it's work and, things like that. But anyways, kook, in my best research, is nothing super derogatory other than, a newbie surfer who may be overexcited, uncouth, maybe in the learning stages of learning to surf and maybe making the mistakes along the way that are necessary.
Waxing the bottom of their board.
Yeah. Yeah. Fins in backwards. Yeah. So a beginner, someone who's not quite cool in the way that, surfers can be cool.
And of course, Nova means Nova Scotia. So Nova Kooks, it was something funny that we started using in our text group, our little text thread that we have. We would meet at 5:30 in the Tim Hortons parking lot. And I think we just ended up calling it Nova Kooks as a joke, and we've just been sort of running with it since.
5:30 a.m. We don't fool around.
Yeah. The next section that I want to lead us into is introduce each other and talk about what got you into surfing. I'm going to just introduce the guys at the table here, and after I do my little spiel, my little write-up, they're going to just talk to us about their surfing origin story, and then sort of finish up with maybe one tip that they learned as a beginner.
Oh, hi. Wait a minute. Who are you?
I mentioned Charles helped me on my journey first. So Charles Curry, he's the loudest, quiet guy you'll ever meet. Coming from Sydney, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Charles works at a local university in an IT media education capacity. He is a guitar player, a songwriter, a filmmaker. He has a number of short films that have been featured at our local Atlantic Film Festival. He's one of the nicest fellas I've ever met in my life, a thoughtful listener, and an inspiring adventurer. Charles, how did you begin surfing?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. So yeah, I'm originally from Cape Breton. So in terms of surfing and in the East Coast, it was something that I was vaguely aware of when I was in high school, and that I knew someone that's surfed and heard that they went surfing, but like somehow I didn't kind of connect the dots in my mind where like you just don't think of the East Coast as this place that you can surf. So I remember having that memory, and I remember like having friends that were up in Halifax that were doing a bit of surfing at that time, but it was something that I never really thought about. It would have been skateboarding at the time. So anyway, I came back to Nova Scotia, it was like 15 years ago. And at that point, I just remember hearing about Lawrencetown and it being this place that you could go surfing. And I remember attempting to drive out to Lawrencetown and thinking like, this is just way too far. And I gave up before I even got to the beach. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind. So, I mean, flash forward to, I guess about 7 years ago, I was at Lawrencetown and just kind of, people were out there just doing lessons as they usually do. And some people were surfing and I was just like, oh, wow, this is like a real thing and people are doing it. I want to check it out sometime. So yeah, me and a friend, we rented boards one day. Definitely not good starting off, but I definitely wanted to just chase down a wave until I could roughly wobbly stand on the board and ride something in, which I accomplished by the end of the day.
Did you take lessons?
Yeah, we did the rental things and like we took lessons there from the East Coast Surf School. So that was all great. But it was one of those things that I kept thinking about afterwards, and I was trying to convince some friends to go out again, yourself included, like, hey, let's rent some boards, let's go out and do it again. And no one was taking me up on that. Kind of like realized one day, I think I had to go to Truro to like do some work, but when I was there, I'd been thinking about it for a while. And I'm just going to do it and go grab the gear. Bought my first longboard and wetsuit. Yeah, I haven't really looked back since.
Awesome. Is there one thing, like a beginner move you did that might help somebody else?
Well, in terms of like kind of like silly kooky thing, I remember the first time I was out on my own and I almost couldn't get out of my wetsuit. I couldn't get it like off my feet. So I was kind of wondering if I was going to have to get someone to come help me and pull it off. But
I could just imagine.
Yeah. So, hey, but it is one of those things where, it's like any new experience where you're kind of learning the ins and outs of it. So I have a colleague that was surfing and I was kind of bugging him. He's actually kind of really sold me on like, you just got to go like buy a board and start doing it. But one thing I would definitely recommend is, for starting out, like the longer the board, the better. The more buoyancy and stability you're going to have and the easier it's going to be for like catching waves starting out. Because there's always this temptation where you're like, oh, I want a short board or I want to go really fast. But, without the skill to maneuver that, you're just going to be doing yourself more harm than good in terms of like starting out.
Yeah. Especially here in Nova Scotia, longboards are kind of the way to go.
Right. Where, it isn't always like big wave surfing. If you want to just like go to like beach breaks and stuff with small waves, like you can catch little guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, next let's introduce Dave Roger. He's our surf Sherpa, the dreamboat of the group. He's the most experienced surfer in the group, and he's always up for helping us out to get better and experience more on our boards. He was born and raised in St. Margaret's Bay, Nova Scotia.
You would think, actually, born and raised in near Guelph, Ontario. We're learning.
I guess I do remember that now, but
that's all right.
You spent most of your youth in St.
Spent a lot of time in St. Margaret's Bay.
He is what I'd like to call a master educator with loads of experience teaching the littles, and now is in more of a coaching capacity with education where he's helping teachers hone their craft with both math and in the past he's done literacy. He's also a successful triathlete in his own right.
Yeah. Successful.
And he's one of the most humble guys, as you can just see, that loves to laugh and bring life to any party.
Wow. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Those are some kind words. Yeah.
So, yeah, what are your surf origins?
Surf origins. Okay, so growing up near Guelph, Ontario, as you can already tell, there was not much surfing, so skate or die. I was introduced to skateboarding probably at the age of 9 or 10. Back in the day, Bones Brigade, Pal Peralta, was my dream. Pre-internet, a Thrasher magazine would make it into the community, and you would just absorb every piece of the skateboarding, but also the style. And obviously, the origins of skateboarding is surfing. So there was always that, wanted to wear the cool clothes. Both my folks were from Nova Scotia, though, so we would come back. We would come here every summer. But when we finally moved here, early 90s, 13 years old, my brother and his friends, one of them had a big old Suburban, which back then was a behemoth. Now it's probably small in comparison to most cars. And the Chev Suburban. I think it had 3 rows, but it was like heads. It was a massive car, and they would in the summer load it up with surfboards and boogie boards, and they would go to Martinique almost every day. And as the tag along younger brother, I would jump in too, and there was enough space. And so boogie boarding, seeing the older guys on surfboards, I don't want to say it's a natural progression because some people just love boogie boarding. That's great. But I was like, I got to get on one of those. Got to stand up. My brother got a surfboard for Christmas from Hurricane Surf Shop. And back then it was like there weren't many boards around. So we would go back and forth on that. And then from there, it just kind of wanted to do it.
What kind of board?
I think it was made somewhere in the Carolinas. I think actually the surfboard was Hurricane Surf Board. To be honest, it wasn't well made. It was very early, very bad glass job. It was super thin, like kind of the opposite of what you'd really want to learn on. But it's what we had, so we used it. And I tombstoned that thing right into the shore break at Lawrencetown, snapped it in half. And my brother, I think, it's still a bone of contention.
Do you still have pieces of this board?
We actually, my wonderful mom, and we've got a picture of her walking down Blower Street when Hurricane was on Blower Street in Halifax. She took it in because she felt so bad. I was like, "Will you fix this for my sons?" And they put like the dowels in, and actually they fixed it up real nice.
Really?
My brother still quote unquote uses that board.
Oh, really?
However, I tried to dissuade him from doing so.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and then it just kind of you get the bug and you keep going.
Well, when we met and I started talking about Charles and I surfing, you weren't getting out as much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so
you guys sparked, you kind of catalyzed my love of it again a little bit if I can.
Yeah.
You get busy with work and
life happens, man.
Life happens. Yeah. But when you guys were into it, I was like, wow, okay,
opportunity to do it with people.
Let's go.
Yeah. Man, I remember that first day you took us out. We didn't know what we were doing, and the waves were way too big.
Yeah, I think there were landmines and sharp pieces of metal.
Yeah, pieces of rebar, massive tires.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you have something kooky that you did or that you could like share for a beginner, like a beginner move to like give a tip to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to ride Charles' coattails too much here, but I think the proper equipment is key. Like other than that Hurricane surfboard, my first surfboard was like, everyone wanted to be Kelly Slater and have this, thin, small blade to get out there and go crazy. Well, as a beginner, I mean, that just looked awful out there. You're doing a lot of paddling. There's no float. So I did a lot of swimming for a long time instead of surfing. You know what I mean? So that board is on my wall as kind of a fun thing because it just kind of made me realize.
Is that the Santa Cruz?
No, that's a different one.
Okay.
This one it was a Daniel thruster, super thin. I had no business being, but it looked. See, here's a kook move. It looked really cool.
You looked like you were
I
doing
looked
it.
like a kook trying to surf it.
Yeah.
But so that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Get some volume.
Yeah.
Surf more, paddle less. I don't know. That's a 40-year-old talking about surfing.
Yeah. I also think a really good tip would be to wax your board properly. Learn how to like properly coat your board. When you get a new board, or even if you're getting a rental, make sure you can stick to the thing and listen to the people at the shop, like use a good base coat and then use like a water temperature appropriate softer wax. And I don't mean like, what is it, Rob Schneider and Surf Ninjas? I'm just going to wax my board, guys. You ever see that?
It's been a
Hilarious.
long time.
It stuck with me because he didn't know how to surf. He was a total kook, right? And he didn't know how to surf. So the guys would all go out surfing. He'd be like, I'll be right there. I'm just going to wax my board. And he'd be waxing his board the whole time. And his board was just like caked. It looked like fondant on a cake. Like, yeah, it was hilarious. All right, so I'm going to move to Joshua I. He is a man that wears many hats, hailing from the Annapolis Valley as well, and holding various roles as project manager for communications and geological surveying. He's also dabbled in the renewable energy world, sort of mainly solar, and is also an accomplished guitarist and overall musician. He's a champion in my life as always being mindful and has a plethora of great tips and insights towards fitness and mental health. Josh, tell us your origin story.
Thanks, Jared. My origin story is different, I guess. I kind of grew up watching everybody else skateboard, loving the culture, everything about it, the music, the people, the clothes, but didn't really skateboard. I tried it a few times. Like, I had access to a banana board at one point and almost killed myself. Those things are dangerous. I recently learned that there's a difference in wheels, like plastic versus rubber. Yeah. I didn't really try surfing until probably I was in university. I went here once. May have taken a lesson here. I'm not sure.
Here being Lawrencetown?
Like in Lawrencetown, yeah. And then I did some traveling and I was able to go surfing somewhere else. And when I traveled, I had not slept throughout the night. And then the next morning, got to where I was going and decided it was time to go surfing. So no sleep, jumped in the water. And this was like...
Where was this?
This was in Australia.
Okay.
In my mind or from magazines, I was, yeah, you surf in Australia. That's
Sounds
what
like
you
a
do.
reasonable place to surf.
And like, it was just insane. I swam out, tried to do the surfing thing and just basically got pinned under the water for 30 seconds at a time for an hour and then was exhausted. So that was kind of my dive into surfing. And then Charles and Jared jumped back into it and probably surfed for like 2 years, I guess. And I just heard the stories and kind of let them pass. Then COVID happened and I was isolated for a year. And then when that lifted, I bought a wetsuit that day. And a couple days later, bought a board and we've been surfing ever since.
You came out with us a couple times with like rentals.
I did. Yeah, I rented
Yeah.
some boards and stuff. But yeah, like not really committed to it. And yeah, no, I love it. I love hanging out with my buds.
Yeah.
Getting a coffee and a breakfast sandwich. Getting out there early in the morning and see the sunrise at the beach. I think it's...
Well, you were the one that sort of planted the seed of us doing this because we have a lot of funny stuff to talk about.
Hanging out with your buds. And then a tip, to be completely honest, it's probably kind of silly, but just let people know that there's a app that you can use and you don't just choose to go surfing and there's waves there. You actually try to coordinate it. So I did not know that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you have a board and a wetsuit. I feel like going surfing today.
Time to surf.
Yeah. Waves are always there, right?
Yeah, it definitely takes some, there's a steep learning curve, I find, with the app. Magic Seaweed.
I still don't entirely understand the app, but when it's green, I know that means I can surf.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize, like, oh, the beach is pointed in this direction. So when I'm reading it, I got to also look at the weather app and see what direction the wind is going.
Oh, yeah.
Now, as this podcast is not intended to only be about surfing, this segment of our show will be where I ask the group a question that they are usually unaware of that will help spark thoughtful answers, deeper questions, and hopefully some great discussion to inspire and or educate you, the listener.
I have several questions I want you to consider.
For this week, I kind of let them in on what I was going to ask them, but we're going to keep it light and more on the topic of surfing for our inaugural episode. The question is, what is your favorite surf movie or show that has included surfing in it in any way. It doesn't have to be about surfing, just include surfing at some point in it. But let's go from Charles first.
Sure. So I'm sure someone is going to bring up Point Break, but I just remember seeing that as a kid and loving it and all aspects of it. So it's surfing and bank robbery and all that, but I'll let someone else get to that because it's not my favorite surf movie. But because you had mentioned television, I always loved that episode of the 1960s Batman where the Joker and Batman are surfing together. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
were they surfing on a shark?
I think there was a
hope
shark
so.
that was
There was a shark
involved as
involved.
well. So yeah, all of the things. But yeah, you can see that on YouTube or catch a GIF of that.
Wasn't there also didn't they get onto a ladder of a helicopter at that time?
I hope
or
so.
Something?
You
I
might be
mixing it
confusing it with the Batman movie there where they're moving. And actually, I think there might be a shark. Maybe there's a shark in every episode of Batman. I don't know.
Oh.
But
Time to do a deep dive.
favorite surf movie would be Big Wednesday, which I believe is from, I'm not sure if it's 1975, 1976. But basically, it's set in Malibu in the 1960s. And it's a group of guys that are coming up together. They surf, so they're kind of like teenagers at that time. It's the 60s, so Vietnam's happening and all that. So it's kind of like those guys' journey from being buds, surfing, going on adventures. Then Vietnam happens, and then they grow up. So it's sort of like their journey through life, and they all kind of come back together at the end for Big Wednesday when there's this big swell that comes in for this big wave that needs to be ridden. It's a really well-made film. I mean, they're surfing. There's a lot of great comedy in it. There's a lot of great drama, and it's directed by John Milius. So he would have been primarily known as a screenwriter, but he kind of came up around that time with Spielberg, Scorsese, all those. So he'd be a contemporary of them, but he'd probably be most famous for writing Apocalypse Now, and he directed Conan the Barbarian. So that's kind of usually
Deep dive. Deep dive, Charles.
tough guy stuff. But that's kind of getting away from the surfing aspect of it. But yeah, Big Wednesday. It's a movie that I just kind of, because it wasn't successful at the time it was released, but it's just a
Cult
quality
classic
pick.
now.
Yeah.
Josh.
Well, I watched one recently called Chasing Mavericks. It's really good.
Is that
Great
the one
story.
with Gerard Butler?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
I really liked that one. And then I actually had to look it up. This one may not be such a good one, but I think it's called Shallows or The Shallows.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
Great movie.
Shark.
Oh, my gosh.
Shark.
Sweaty palms all the time.
Yeah.
No, honestly, that movie and Soul Surfer, those movies, I can't watch. I can't handle that concept.
Yeah.
Can't.
I can't
I have one more too, and it's a weird one, but it's called Breath, and it's based in Australia. Really good surfer movie.
Is it surfing, or is it just a is there a story and they're surfing?
Oh, there's definitely a story, but it's this guy that his passion is just surfing. That's what he does, and he will go anywhere in the world if the surf report is what's the phrase for when it's hitting? Is it hitting?
What do you mean?
When surf is hitting or it's firing? Firing.
Yeah.
So this guy...
I think that's what
firing,
you say.
That's it.
Firing.
That's my most kook statement so far. But yeah, great movie. And it also follows this one character, but then there's also these kids that are kind of figuring their life out. They're just discovering surfing, and they'll hop in his truck when he's on the way to the beach, and it just becomes this whole thing. And then ultimately the kids, one goes in the path of surfing and the other decides it's not for him, and it's just this really interesting dynamic. So those are three great movies in my mind.
Awesome. Yeah, Dave, surf movies or shows.
I got a list here. And you know what? I'm not going to take it, but I have to give respect due to Point Break.
Yeah.
I think we can all just a tip of the cap.
Absolutely.
A tip of the cap.
I think a future episode must include a deep dive.
Oh yeah, because that's the story of a kook.
Yeah.
Really,
Johnny Utah.
An FBI kook.
Give me two. An FBI kook.
Yeah.
So anyways,
we'll jump in later.
I'm gonna lay that out there, as we've all laid out a few good movies, and then I'm gonna go to one that I watched recently. And don't kill me for doing this, but a movie that everyone I feel should have in their repertoire: Apocalypse Now.
I thought of that when Charles was talking.
Yeah. So I never always knew the references, because it you see it in movies, you see it in TV shows. There's always references to Apocalypse Now. You know, the helicopters with the music blasting out. You see it, but I never watched it. So the other day I was like, I'm gonna watch this thing, and it's a commitment. It's about 3 hours of solid movie. To be honest with you, I knew that there was some surfing in it, and that's probably what I was looking for most, other than figuring what this movie's all about. And anyways, watching them buzz around in their helicopters, basically storming a beach, essentially motivated just to surf this amazing little reef, on their longboard that has, I'm going to say this wrong, but like the coat of arms from their platoon or whatever painted on it, the Yater spoon is what they called it. Anyways, watching those funny actors who are young in the 60s, with all the war propaganda and I was trying to get through that and just kind of realize the time and the place that took place. But anyways, just seeing them, surfing, and there was a pro surfer and seeing guys while the bombs were dropping, trying to surf this wave. I gotta just, it sticks out right now.
Well, and that's such a great scene. And it's something that I hadn't, because I always kind of associate that with that's when the helicopters are called in. But the reason he's calling in the helicopters is because he has his pro Kilgore, has his pro surfer, and he's just like, we're going surfing. So he basically creates a swell there. But it's something that I think it might be with that 3 hour version with the director's cut where there's kind of a bit more to the surfing stuff. Cause I remember watching it years ago, the shorter version, and that was part of it, but it really stuck out to me this time.
Okay. Yeah. This is the only one I've watched. So I can't bounce it off any other version, but really interesting. And then of course I think they napalm the whole village, which creates a wind vacuum, which turns the offshore winds into an onshore winds. And then Kilgore gets really pissed off because he did all this so they could go surfing, and now that napalm has destroyed the conditions, and now they got to go.
Is that Robert Duvall's character?
Yeah. I love the
pretty
smell
sure.
of napalm.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to go with that.
Nice.
I'm going to go with that.
Great choice.
Yeah, awesome. I also kind of had a couple. I was having a hard time settling on one because there's so many great things to mention in Point Break. I literally made a note. I said Point Break, but somebody's probably going to say it. I kind of have three little ones. One of them is definitely what was it, Lords of Dogtown? From the director that did that 13 movie. So there was this documentary, Dogtown and the Z-Boys, and that was a great, fantastic documentary. But then this movie came out, and I just remember how it begins. One of the kids runs out. It's still dark in the morning, and he hops on his skateboard and goes down this crazy steep hill and wipes out and has the surfboard in his hand. And all he wants to do is just get to the docks and surf. And then all of the older brothers and veterans, all the locals only kind of mentality guys were all there and just nailed them into the wharf, the pillars of the wharf.
Yeah.
And
nailed him to the
literally
nailed him,
not literally.
No. They crucified him to
body checked them on their boards into this.
It's a hardcore story.
Then he rose from the dead and surfed
that's
it.
I can totally imagine that being a true thing. I'm sure that stuff that stuff totally happened to you punk kid, get out of here, this is my wave. I totally see that happening. But I just love that flavor. When I saw that movie, I was like, oh man, that just imagine just waking up, riding your skateboard to the beach, no cares in the world at all. Oh man. Then another one that that my wife said that I should do, which I had in the back of my mind, there's a new Disney series on Disney Plus called Doogie Kamealoha. It's basically the Doogie Howser, they redid Doogie Howser, but it's in Hawaii, and it's a female local girl. Her whole family surfs, and her boyfriend surfs, and it's just adds this cool flavor. And it's got what's that guy's name? He played Bruce Lee, and he was in that Jungle Book movie. Jason Scott Lee? Yeah, I think it's Jason Scott Lee. Anyway, he's hilarious in it. I didn't know that actor had such good comic timing, but he nails it. I wish I was that dad. He's so cool.
Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time, that guy, or
no, he in Dragon. That was the movie Dragon.
Dragon. Nice.
Yeah, he played
Jason Scott Lee.
Jason Scott Lee. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, anyway, it's a great show. It has like, it takes you through all the emotions every episode. You're laughing, you're smiling, you're thinking, oh, cute kids. You're thinking, oh, poor Doogie. And then and then there's always like some cool surf moment. There's a really cool moment in there where Jason Scott Lee enters a surf competition and they make him go in the seniors division, and it's like heartbreaking for him. And then he puts his back out because he decides to go out with the young guys and tries to show off. And it's just like, I can relate.
I feel like that's a good point, though. You can surf at any age.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah.
What's that documentary we both watched recently?
Well, that was the one that I was actually going to say.
Oh,
100-foot wave. It's basically about the pro surfer, big wave surfer Garrett McNamara, and how he basically put, what is it, Nazaré, Portugal?
Yep.
Like on as like a major like contender in the surf world as a place to go. And it's fantastic. It's heartbreaking, it's depressing, it's uplifting, it's awe-inspiring. It's amazing, especially because it doesn't just feature him, like it uses him as like the story of this place, but it also highlights all of the other people that did all the firsts at that place. So, like the first 90-foot wave wasn't even him, it was somebody else. And I started following this guy on social media, was Andrew Cotty. I thought his story on there was amazing because he was in line and Garrett was like championing him, and like he was going to actually like surf this wave, like the biggest wave on record. And he was lined up perfectly. It was going to be awesome. And it just didn't, he ended up, I think he like broke his back or something and like went through his years of therapy. It was hard to watch, but very interesting.
Great documentary though. Like it just shows like.
What is that on Prime? Or Crave?
No, it's on.
It might be on.
I think it's on Crave.
Yeah.
But like
in Canada,
Garrett McNamara surfed an 80-foot wave, which at the time was the first time anybody did it in 2012, and he was like 44 at the time. And like it just goes to show you, like you can keep following your passion. Yeah. Like. Nobody can stop.
I think he surfs with like a helmet and everything now, and like, yeah, do what you got to do. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Not that we're promoting like surfing with helmets and trying to find 80-foot waves, but the point is, if you've thought about surfing and never done it,
well, that kind of brings me to like, I remember one day going out. We were at Lawrencetown, and we were like hobbling on the rocks because the tide was in, so it's pretty rocky beach. There's not a lot of sand when the tide's in. And we were hobbling on the rocks, and I remember this old guy, like it was awe-inspiring because he could barely walk to the water, but he was going surfing. He was all done up in his wetsuit. He went out and we stood and watched him for a minute, and he nailed it. It was amazing. He crushed it.
Yeah, I love seeing the older and older. I don't want to. There's no negative connotation there at all. But like the veteran guys, like you go out Cow Bay, you go out Seaforth, and when it's good and the conditions are right, that they know when it's right, and maybe I hit it by accident, like. But when you see those old guys out there who just know where to go. It seems effortless, but it's not effortless, Yeah. And you see them surfing. It's inspiring. To your point,
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing those guys just still at it, loving it, and they have an air of respect about them. You're not gonna do anything near those guys. Just let them do their thing.
And it relates to so many things. Like us as a group, like we still all. When there wasn't COVID, we all still go see bands play and stuff like that. And like, it's the same sort of thing. Like, I love going to a show and seeing people that are my age or older. Like, it's cool. I went to a Legwagon show before COVID happened, and obviously Legwagon has been around for a while. And at this point, there were people there that had brought their children. And I was like, you know what? That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I just sent you guys a text about a Propagandy show coming up.
Oh, I'm going.
Oh man, I hope that they're not shutting things down. Yeah. By the way, just for the listeners, when this is being filmed in Nova Scotia, we just ended we're sort of at the beginning of ending a lockdown. So
Yeah, we're at phase 1 of reopening, I think.
yeah, so it's been a long go, but hopefully this is it.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
I've never heard of either of those bands, by the way.
Oh, see?
Really?
No,
Nightwagon?
and this is probably another good thing to bring up.
Great.
These three gentlemen are musicians and understand music, and I don't really, other than I like to listen to music.
With skateboarding, would you kind of come up with that whole punk rock kind of thing?
You know
or-
what? A little bit. Probably more when rap was kind of coming out, like Public Enemy. Like we would love to pump Public Enemy, which they were talking and doing things that, you know, young Caucasian friends in the middle of Ontario, we didn't understand, but it just kind of opened our minds and was aggressive, whereas we were very, you know, privileged and, you know, like not
Their
that.
message was potent, but also like the music was different, and it was
wild.
refreshing.
It
yeah.
was wild. Like just, you know, grab the boombox, put in Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy, and let's skateboard.
Yeah.
And that's when we thought we were doing something mind blowing. So not as much the punk, but no reason why. Just, I don't know. It was Guns N' Roses. It was.
He's also so much older than us.
I'm a little older. Yeah,
Let's be
probably.
honest, though,
I mean,
like-
but like for us, it was Ice-T, Ice Cube, Public Enemy.
Yeah.
And not that we could relate at all. It just was so different and exciting. Like, let's
it was revolutionary
skateboard,
at the
let's
time,
wear
yeah.
the clothes, and let's. I don't know. It kind of opened up a world that we had no idea of.
That kind of like is a nice way to round us out, that, you know, we're not always going to get hung up on surfing. We're going to talk about all the stuff like surf culture kind of has brought to us. And for our last sort of final thoughts, what we're going to try to do is, as I said before, Charles is the loudest, quiet guy you'll meet. You never know what he's thinking or what he's going to come up with. And one of my favorite things that Charles will do when we're hanging out is ask an offbeat question that just like comes out of nowhere and gets you all thinking. So we're going to sort of end our podcast with a quick little question from Charles.
This is Charles.
Okay, I'll try this one. So let's say there is a scenario where you're able to have this footage or video of, let's say it's someone you admire. Perhaps it's like a parent or family member when they were younger, or perhaps it's just like someone that you're interested in. So the content of this video is basically, let's say it's their bedroom, kind of like when they're growing up. Okay. So
I like this.
as an example, and you just kind of think of whoever you're interested in, but let's say it was an opportunity to see like your parents' like bedroom when they were like 15. So it's kind of a glance into that. So you have a choice of, you can have this 30 seconds of just kind of like close-up shots of the contents of that room, or you can have a 3-minute wide shot. And then the second part will be why. So just out of curiosity, we'll just go around. Which one would you choose?
Can you replay the 30 seconds?
No, you
Okay.
can only watch
One time.
one of them one time.
All right.
And it's someone we admire. We don't have to know them personally.
Exactly. You're just someone you admire. It could be someone
Beautiful.
you know. Or yeah.
And is the 3 minutes a photo or is it a video?
It's a video.
I guess it
and
doesn't
they're
really matter.
they're not in it. It's just their space.
And it's their bedroom.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
This is hard.
I feel like you're first, Jared.
I don't have it. Well, I'd totally go. I'd go with the 3-minute.
You go with the 3-minute one?
Well, like I imagine I could walk around the room and like get close and like look at the screen a little bit, right? Like
I don't know. The 30 seconds is intriguing me. I like to, you know,
You're gonna
come
go
in
with
tight.
You're gonna go with the 30
I
seconds?
want to see some things,
Okay, cool.
minute details.
Sounds good. Josh?
Do you get to pick us?
Oh
pick
my
what
gosh,
the
Josh.
details? Do you get to pick what the 30 seconds is focusing on, or is it just like it's like
No, you
predetermined?
don't have any choice. But like, I mean, for example, like we're in a room here, so it would be close-up shots of the contents of this here room.
Yeah, no, I'm 3-minute wide shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Charles?
Right. I'm going to go with the 3-minute wide shot as well. Jared, do you want to start with like why you're going with the 3-minute wide shot? And if there's someone that you thought that you would like
Okay.
to do this.
Jeez, man. Yeah, well, like I said, like I'm assuming I could get up and walk around and walk closer to the screen to look myself as best I could.
You could get closer to the TV to
but
look
I
at
could
it.
have
Yeah.
a minute to, I could do my own scanning. I could control my own scan of things and like look at what I see a little bit closer. And as far as a person, like I can't pinpoint it, but like I think someone like my grandfather or my dad, like just to get an in on them as a kid, you know, I have like these relics of them, but to actually like see it, like to imagine what it was like.
They're using it like it's
That'd be neat.
Yeah,
and just and to relate who I am to them, because there are commonalities.
Oh yeah, totally. And like, yeah, if it's a younger person, you know, I mean, especially when you're younger, like your bedroom is sort of like the window or kind of defines you or represents who you are. So it's an insight to them. Yeah. David, you went with the 30-second close-up shots.
Yeah, I don't know why now, but I I don't know. I want to say a family member, but I think, I would like to see someone who is creative in a way that I am not, whether that be an artist, a musician, a mechanic, and to see 30 seconds of like the things that inspires them. And I'm assuming this person would also be kind of an inspirational person and in a way that I am not, and just kind of see what is their kind of musings, what is their, what would be important to them. Like I would want to kind of be like, oh, what's that? There's a story there. What's that? Oh, that means something to them. And it would probably be a musician or an artist or someone who builds something, and someone that is totally different from kind of who I am in a way. Because I like learning about people who aren't like me.
My turn. I'm going to stretch your question because I don't like working within confines.
Oh my gosh.
So again, I'm the wide shot 3-minute video. I would like to see my parents. Actually, it might even be cool to see my parents when their relationship first started. So like maybe when they got married. So like what did that look like? Or maybe them as kids. Not sure. I'm going to leave that undecided, but like that's an interest. But then I'd like to see someone who I sort of admire. And I'm not really one to have like heroes and things like that, but I would like to see like a musician or someone that is like of a high caliber and get that snapshot to see like what it actually takes to be that. Because I think sometimes we're always, we just assume people are talented because you never see the behind the scenes of how hard they work and things like that. And I'd like to see that. And then just to be a bit weird about it, I recently read an article that Dolly Parton is offering free education to anyone that works at Dollywood if they have an interest in advancing their education.
I like that.
And they can either work part-time, seasonally, or full-time. And I just think she is a very fascinating person. So I'd like to see a snapshot of Dolly Parton's room as a child.
That's awesome.
The stories that she could tell.
Be amazing. I'd like to see that snapshot to see what made that person, because she's a combination of a lot of things.
She's gone through a lot of things.
She's a celebrity for sure. Yeah. But like from the perspective I get, she seems like the most wholesome, caring person. And that recent news article I saw, I'd like to see what made that person. So yeah.
Cool.
So what shaped me, and then what made a person like that exist in the world?
All right, Charles, why and who?
So I would go with the 3-minute thing, but with all your answers, you're also kind of making me think of the value of the 30-second one. So I would probably do 3 minutes, and I would probably choose like, my parents when they were teenagers or something like that. And, it's an interesting time in terms of their age because there's more of a teenage culture. So I would think have things in that room that represent them. But I like the idea, and I think it's because it's a family relation, of kind of like experiencing that time, like that feeling that full 3 minutes. So it's kind of like about kind of having this one-time capsule into their world. So it's kind of like the duration or feel of that. But in listening to your guys' answer, if it was someone that I was kind of interested in, like kind of like like an artist or something like that, I think I actually might go with the 30-second clips, just to kind of like, because I'd be less concerned about kind of like almost kind of experiencing or being in this space of someone that I know, and be more about like, okay, what are the finer details? Because I'm not necessarily going to get that in the wide shot. But it's something I was curious to ask about, because I think just with kind of how we experience like video now, I mean, the expectation is that it's quickly edited together. It's all these like quick shots, and it's like snippets, because like our attention span has decreased. So if you were sitting down and watching like a 1 minute shot or like 3 minute shot, it's going to feel incredibly long, but it's also more meditative or contemplative in a way, in terms of like experiencing time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just something that was on my mind.
Nice.
Good question.
Great question.
I knew it. Well, I'm going to steer us towards our end. So as you can see, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that isn't always going to be surfing related. But, as Dave sort of pointed out, he was talking about how three of us are big audiophiles in the room, and he's not. But, there's a lot of... there's three skateboarders in the room and one not. And we're going to find that we have a lot of things in common and a lot of things not in common, which hopefully entertains you, the listener. Before we go, I just want to reiterate who we are. I've been your host, Jared Gates.
And I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm David Roger.
I've also enjoyed this, and I hope to do a lot more. And I'm Josh I.
It was fun. I'm Charles.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to Nova Kooks. This has been our first episode. Join us next time for more kooky surf moments, beginner surf tips, music and movie talk, eccentric questions from Charles, and next time on the podcast, Josh, Charles, and myself, Jared, are going to compete to replace the royalty-free music you're listening to now for a new theme song that we can call our own. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more Nova Kook adventures. Thanks so much for listening, and be well.